All right. Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to do a little graphing and come up to some conclusions based on the graphs that we make. What I would like for you to do is for each of these equations, y equals 2x, I want you to go ahead and make a table. And you know how to do this, so I'm going to have you do this. I'm going to have you use your calculator. X, Y, we're going to do -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. We're going to go over here. We're going to plug in y equals 2x. Second graph to look at our table. Then we're going to fill in our values. So our values are -4, -2, 0, 2, and 4. And then for this one, we're going to do 2x minus 1. So we're going to make our table x, y, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to go back to my y equals. I'm going to put in, clear that out, 2x minus 1. Go to my table and fill in my values. -5, -3, -1, 1, 1, and 3. And then for this one, we're going to do the same thing. X, y, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Go back to y equals. And this is going to be, instead of -1, it's going to be +3. Come on, 3. And I'm going to look at my graph. And I'm going to fill this in. So that's -1, 1, 3, 5, and 7. So now what I need to do is I need to fill in those lines. Let me go ahead and open this up a little bit so we can see it a little better. So let me do my blue line first. So I have -2, -1, and -1 and 1, 0 and 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 5, and 2 and 7. And then I'm going to put in, I'm going to try to do a nice straight line for you. Remember, you need it to go through the points and from one side of the graph to the other. All right, let's do our black one. So that's the first one. So I did -2, -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it was 1, -2. It was 0, 0. 1, 2, and 2, 4. And let me put in a line for that one. Let me see if I can fix that line. It isn't quite straight. It didn't quite go through all the points like it should. There we go. Let me make it black. There we go. Now let's do our red one. So, let's see here. I'm going to use red ink. -2, -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. And we're going to put in our line. Oh, goodness, that it was so far off. Let's see. I need to fix that. Okay. Now let's make this line red so that we can keep them separate. Alright, now if you're a teacher and you're using this, let's stop the video and give the students time to answer the questions 1 through 4, and I will fill in the answers that I think should go there. Alright, so hopefully you've gone through that. Now you can answer the questions. These have been done for you. What I do want you to do is I want you to label on your paper which line goes with which equation. I'll tell you the way you can do this. If we look at this line here, we see where does it cross the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis at -1. So I'm looking for a constant that is -1. So I know this is y equals -1/2 x minus 1. This crosses the y-axis at 0. Well, the coefficient on that is 3. The coefficient on that is -1. This does not have a coefficient, so that means this one is just y equals -1/2 x. And then we look at this one here. Where does it cross? It crosses right here at +3. Well, look, here we have a +3. So I know that this equation goes to that line. Again, What do we notice about these lines? They are parallel. And this is our symbol for parallel. What do the lines have in common? Well, they all have the same slope. How are the lines different? They have different y-intercepts. And our rule is parallel lines have the same slope and different y-intercepts. All right, so let's look at something here. This is a different slope than this. So what do they have in common? Well, it doesn't look like they have anything in common, except, I don't know if any of you noticed this or even know that a slope of 2 and a slope of -1/2 are opposite reciprocals. We'll talk more about that in a moment. They're opposite reciprocals. What do these lines have in common? We'll just put nothing at this point. How are they different? Well, one goes up, one is increasing, one is decreasing, and what is the rule for these lines? Well, I don't know. We're going to come back to this because you're going to figure this out. If you see two lines that cross like this, and they make a 90-degree angle right there, and a 90-degree angle right there, what are they called? Well, they're called perpendicular. Perpendicular. Which means they intersect at right angles. And the math symbol for perpendicular is that right there. So, what is the rule for these lines? We would say perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay, reciprocal means that you have a number that if you multiply it will equal 1. For example, let me over here, if I give you 2/3, if I wanted a reciprocal of 2/3, the reciprocal I could multiply by 3/2. Notice I just flipped the fraction. Opposite means if I start with a positive, this would be negative. If I start with this negative, then this would be a positive. So opposite opposite has to do with positive or negative, and reciprocal is flipping the fraction. And you said, well, on that first one it was not a fraction, it was just a 2. Well, if you look at this, 2, I can make a fraction by putting it over 1. So I have a 2 over 1. I flip it, the 1 goes on top, the 2 goes on the bottom. This was a positive. This becomes a negative. Opposite reciprocal. Another example, if you have any kind of a number, let me do it over here off to the side. If I have negative 4, I need to make it a fraction. I put it over 1. The opposite reciprocal of negative 4 over 1 would be 1 over 4. Notice I just flipped my fraction. That is the reciprocal. The opposite refers to, it starts as a negative, this becomes a positive. Alright, x equals and y equals. Notice again, and in fact our grid is already in a 90-degree setup. It creates a 90-degree angle right there. That means this is 90 degrees. That means this is 90 degrees. So, they are perpendicular. Okay? Now, this is a little different because this is an x equals, this is a y equals. This has a slope of 0. This is undefined. So, one has 0 slope. That's the y equals that goes like this. That is a function. This is a function. The other one is not a function at all. It is a vertical line, not a function. So, 1 is undefined. So don't tell me that this one here has no slope. You tell me it is undefined. Don't tell me this one here has no slope. You tell me the slope is 0. We don't talk about things having no slope. What is the rule for these lines? Well, undefined slopes are perpendicular to 0 slopes. That little slash just lets you know that's a 0 and not an O. Alright, let's look at set E. Now on this, I'm going to put the slope is 1. And on this, the slope is -1. So let me make a fraction. The first one is 1 over 1. The second one is -1 over 1. They are opposite reciprocals. They are perpendicular. One has a positive slope. And one has negative slope. What is the rule for these? The rule is opposite reciprocals opposite reciprocal slopes create perpendicular lines.